everybody. Welcome to the episode number one of The Locker Room. I'm Denham Taylor, the general manager, also known as Denz. And we have here.
I'm Zach. Most people know me as Zed. Um, Definitely the better player out of the two of us. More accomplished and stuff. But yeah, now turn coach and here at Boston Breach. So
Awesome. So, look, the Locker Room's going to be very casual, and we're just going to talk over the season. And I think one positive thing that we can take from the season is we did as much as we could. What was your favorite kind of moment throughout the season, Zach?
um, I would say he's in retiring.
You got
But
me.
that's more.
That was one of mine as well.
It,
I
it,
I have
it
a
was
couple.
more not the fact that Zin actually was leaving, but like just knowing that he was going on to like what he was going to do with Scamp, and like I knew he was going to be successful. And over the last year and a half, got really close with Zin. Both of us did. And like I know it hurt for him to retire because he knew he still had more in the tank, but yeah, it was nice in the way he sent it off, and he had some big balls going up on that stage and doing it, but it's something I couldn't do. Yeah, definitely up there with my favorite for sure.
Yeah, no, I definitely had. I mean, that was definitely one of my favorite memories from the season. Um, Once again, in terms of like, hey, like it was more the send off and like there's a big moment. I think we were backstage as a whole team kind of thing, and um, the, there was some leadership ownership group there as well. Really big moment. I was walking with him actually that morning. Myself, my fiance, and Zim were walking about. I'm like, look, if you're gonna do it, I need to know now because this is the prime opportunity to do a send off. And I also got to like kind of not to put pressure on him, but I also got to kind of plan at the same time for the future of the Boston Breach competitive team. So, um, yeah, I think there was a couple onions being cut in
Oh yeah, I had
backstage.
tears for sure.
Um, I know a couple guys had tears as well, so I'm just keeping that as blackmail. Like I've seen you cry before. I know it gets to you. But I guess some of the other favorite, at least for myself, Zach, like is we had a lot of player turnover, and in that though there was like the kind of promotion of players, and like obviously the relegation, and having to go through those hard times and tasks of like benching somebody for XYZ reason is difficult. But there's also the flip side where you're kind of going to someone, you're like, hey, like we want you to step up to the plate. We want you to represent Boston Breach. I think that's like also one of my favorite things. As much as um, I hate uh, having to make the decisions that we do in terms of anyone getting benched and whatnot. So the other favorite memories are being able to go to Eric, being able to go to Kyle, and really just saying, hey, like here's your opportunity, here's your shot. You guys have uh, shown us what you're capable of, and kind of seeing their first initial reaction and the joy on their face, and every team and every player kind of wants to get to that point. So yeah, those are some of the favorite memories for myself. I think obviously the third one I had was just champs. Uh, 2 weeks prior to champs, we lost to London major of 5 in Toronto. It was probably the lowest point in the franchise history. So to kind of at least turn it around a little bit, and see, we kind of went out with like a nothing to lose kind of attitude, and still the players kind of come around each other at that time. Was super fucking cool. You know, champs is the biggest tournament, and as you and I both know, it's like you got to put it all on the line because you don't want to have any regrets or what ifs. So, um, yeah, I mean, those three for me were really kind of like the favorite memories for the season. Um, Obviously, Major Two, I think that goes without saying that hosting Major Two was really cool. Um, which
Apart
kind
from
of
the weather, we got some
yeah,
bad luck with the weather, but other than
yeah,
that, it
the
was good.
weather. Honestly, when I was walking back, like I don't know why, but like I didn't have any thermals on, but my legs, my like thighs and calves are like all starting to turn into like frozen jelly. I don't know. I've never experienced something like that before. Obviously, come from Australia, we don't even get into the minuses. It's just like 40 on a bad day. Like on a cold day is 40. Um, what were we, like -30, minus 30.
Yeah, something like
And I think the funny thing is, I think that's the only thing that people are like, yeah, Major 2 was fucking awesome. The weather wasn't so good. I was cold. I'm like, well, that's definitely something we couldn't schedule or like, determine. Maybe I know you did like a rain dance the week before, so maybe that kind of contributed to the bad weather. Uh, In saying that, so yeah, obviously there was some really good moments. I guess it wasn't all rainbows and sunshines. I think everybody kind of knows that. I think internally we know it. Externally in the public facing eye, they know that as well. Um, what were the biggest takeaways from this past season for yourself individually, for the team? Um, I think quickly just for myself it was like trying to you don't see the day-to-day progress as much when you're so involved um in the team, and knowing how to balance like being so hands-on and like taking a step back as well is something that like for me is something that I've kind of learned, because it's like it's easy to kind of look past some of um the good things that are coming out from the day-to-day exercises, and you really just hyper focused, which also is another thing that's like you can't just hyper focus on just one task at hand, because it does start taking a mental toll on you. Um, but yeah, I'll shoot it to you, Zach. Like, what yeah, were the takeaways from the season for yourself,
that.
your role for the team?
Yeah, I mean, obviously being a coach, I'm still fairly new. That was only year 2 of being a coach. If you look at a player, if you see a player in a year 2 of a player, like they're still new, like they're still like raw to it all. So I'd like to think there's still so much more I can learn as a coach and like be better as a coach. Um, and I think one of the hardest things for me is people that know me, they know I'm a pretty, I'm like a social butterfly. I like to make people laugh. I like to be the jokester of the room, and
Shit
balancing
jokes.
that,
Some
great
shit
jokes.
jokes in there.
Hey, they get everybody laughing. Hey, that's
I
all that
can see them
matters.
coming from a mile away. That's all I'm saying. I like.
um,
I start
and like,
laughing before the joke's over.
for me as like a coach, like I need to learn and like be better at balancing that with the players, because obviously I want the players to like me. I want them to be able to approach me with any problems, and like almost like a father figure, especially for these young guys. Um, but also balancing it with like, look, like if I have to discipline and you know be like stern, like they're gonna listen to that and value my opinion. And that's a super hard balance to find. Most people are either one way or the other. Very few people like get it right in the middle. Um, and there's just so much more to coaching than people think. Like, you know, I'd like to think a lot of people can look at a mini map and look at VOD of a different team and be able to tell you their tendencies and be able to tell you what they do and how to copy it and how to counter it. But there's so much more to being a coach outside the game that people don't talk about. Um, and just balancing them relationships with each other and holding that team together like glue. Um, and yeah, that's just something I'm trying to work on and be better at, as well as do the other things. Yeah, lots of lessons learned this year, especially with all the changes we made and the different personalities. And, um, in hindsight, definitely made some mistakes, but as long as you learn from it, that's all you can do. I think that goes for anything in life, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we always say like when we're looking over and watching the boys play COD, it's like okay, we're practicing. These are the scrims. Like you're gonna make mistakes. We want you guys to make mistakes. So then when it comes to the crunch time, or like when it comes to an official game, it's like you've learned from those mistakes that you did in practice. Hopefully, you've been able to practice not doing them and getting out of that kind of bad habit, and then actually applying it when it comes to lights, camera, action on the main stage. But look, I think very similar. It's like there's a balance in everything that you kind of got to do. You know, you don't want to be too comforting. You don't want to, but you don't want to make the players too uncomfortable with the team. You got to manage the relationship. Some players have a bigger ego than others. Um, it's all a bit of a juggling act, and trying to find that balance in how disciplined you can be, how hands off you can be, how hands on you can be. Um, that is a difficult task to kind of achieve. I mean, I think we look at other teams and um, you know, we're always asking players, you know, what does this person do well? Like, what does Crowder do well? What did Rambo do well? What does Phoenix do well? And look at other coaches, and it's like, and we ask for this from the player feedback as well. And it's a difficult one to like kind of just sum up in you know, a few words. But I think all these coaches have some of these struggles where it's just like we saw that podcast with Crowder. He's like, hey, like in scrims it doesn't happen. Like we tell them to do this, it happens, perfect, it's all good. And then comes an official match and they don't do it. And you're like, where's the disconnect? What kind of happened here? Like, how did you forget something we've been over for like a month straight? Like, um, and those are growing frustrations as well. And you kind of have to like pull yourself away from it at times, and that is difficult because this is a performance industry. You're so invested every day, 6 days a week. You're going. You're. It's not easy hours. So you know, there's a build up sometimes, and sometimes there's a release of that kind of implosion. I think that's happened at every team. So there's no uh just rainbows and sunshine. I know New York, they've been a great team this season, but I know, you know, on the backside there's been some conflicts. I think everyone has it. It's just how do you manage it? How do you get the best out of your players, and the potential? So, um, yeah, I mean, with that being said, I guess what are the kind of the moments throughout the season that kind of keeps you up at night, and um, what what are them, and how are we excited to kind of build off what happened this year into next season? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the biggest one, which is the elephant in the room. Obviously the back-to-back last place. When we made them roster changes, it was for the good of the team. We wouldn't have made them otherwise. I don't think anyone's making a roster change that is going to make your team worse. That just doesn't make sense. When we brought Kyle in, Kyle was performing very well on challenges, and we're like, this guy's ready. Like, he's good enough. We've seen it day in, day out. And when we brought him in the team, did we do that too early? Maybe looking back in hindsight, sure. We just came off a top four. There's a lot that goes into these changes, and yeah, I mean, looking back, probably like should have let that ride out a little bit longer than we did. But yeah, I mean, I'm just, like I said earlier, it's like everything's a lesson learned. So, I'd like to hope in the future, we wouldn't make that same mistake again. Although looking back, I'd have made the same decision 100 times out of 100, because again, Kyle was frying. He was dropping a 1.3 in challenges or something like that. So it would have been stupid not to bring him in the team. I look at some teams that struggled this year who had people on the bench, and I'm like, you know, what if they bring them people in? What if Seattle, when Seattle was struggling, they bring Gwyn in the roster? It's easy after the fact to say, oh, like, they made a mistake or they backed up a roster decision. But when you're in it, when you're involved, like, you can't look at everything in hindsight. It's got to be, calculated decisions that you think are going to benefit the team. Which is why last year we made the decision to bench Cap and bring Reece in, which, looking back, was a good decision, right? It's like there's good decisions, there's bad decisions, but you never know until you do it, right? So um, I'm excited going forward just to keep, making better and better decisions going forward, and using our past knowledge to make decisions in the future.
Yeah, no, I think to kind of echo what you've said is, I think in season one where we were pretty much we had the last four players coming into the season, we had to take a couple risks, and then we found ourselves, I think it was like major three, we found ourselves like struggling a little bit, and we could kind of foresee that. Previously, there was a pro-am in between. We didn't do so well at the pro-am. And that was probably the time to kind of pull the trigger to keep our trajectory alive. So, but we let it go a little longer than we probably should have. So in at least season one, we pulled the trigger late. Um, I think me and you align on maybe this season we pulled the trigger too early. Um, but everything's done in the pure intention to make the competitive roster as good as possible. We also don't want to be one of those teams that just settles for mid pack, bubble pack. You know, if we can do what we can do to win and be consistent there on Sunday, that's what we want to do. And I know it's really difficult to do that. I mean, look at FaZe last season and even this season. It's like they only won one championship out of 11, and you're like, but they've put themselves in a position to win 8 of them, and it's like, well, what do you want? Do you want to be the LAG last year who won a title, um, and didn't make champs, or do you want to be the FaZe who puts themselves in those positions to continuously have the opportunity to win 3, 4 titles over the course of 2 years? And I think, at least for myself, and I assume you, is we would want to be the phase kind of structure where we don't want this big roller coaster sporadic um, concept of a team where it's like you live and die by the inconsistencies. You want to have the highest floor and hopefully the highest ceiling, but um, sometimes it doesn't work that way. And yeah, I guess that's probably one thing that keeps me up at night is probably just running it with Reese a little longer. But that's, once again, that's in hindsight. Um, we were I think one of the frustrations people don't understand, at least, we have all the information in the world. Um, some people from the outside can't really see looking in. We were disgusting in scrims. Like we were like 70% win rate in scrims. And you compare that to the league, like just in official matches and whatnot. Uh, a 70% win rate in scrims is you're talking New York respawn level. And they won 2 majors in the chip, so or a ring, I should say. Um, and we just struggled to get that translation. Was that more time? Not sure. You know, those are the kind of things that keep myself up at night. Um, but yeah, we were good, and
We've
we
always
just
been good in scrims as well.
we've
Just
always
one
been
thing
good.
for people to know: we've no matter what iteration of team we've had, even when we had Zin, like even last year, Zin, Tej, Vivid Neuro, like we were good in scrims. Like
Yeah,
I would go like when we went to Major or New York in Vanguard and Champs, like I was confident we could win, and like that's just based off practice. Like I was like, yo, we are performing very well, very consistently. Like as long as we play this way on the stage, we we have a good shot. And obviously, we'll probably talk about it in the future. But that round 11 loss to Thieves definitely stung, and I don't think we recovered from that at champs. So, uh, what if, man? What if we didn't sit in sport round 11?
no, I mean like stuff like that. It's like when we're scrimming, it's like and you're looking good, and like of course some players and some teams play a little different from a scrim to an official. Like, for example, in scrims, people will not value their life as much as an official when they're in a power spot. There's more snakes coming in. There's more buying time. Um, and so sometimes we also have to come like that's a hurdle in itself. It's like, oh yeah, we broke this and we've been really consistent at doing it. You get to an official, you do the same kind of strategy, and you're like, well, this guy's really like he's giving us nothing, make it really hard for us. Um, there are a lot of variables in COD, and you have to make quick decisions. So when it's working in scrims and then it comes to an official and it's like what you were doing wasn't working, you're kind of like the players themselves are also like shit. Like I can't get my rhythm, my flow, because it's not. I keep running into a brick wall. Um, and then you can dissect it, and you can look at pattern recognition all you want. Um, and then you try and look at a different approach, and then sometimes maybe that sets you back a little bit. Um, but once again, everything's kind of done with an intention to have more consistency, have the team be the best they can be, unlock that kind of potential, um, and untap that kind of raw talent that we had. So, um, yeah, scrims are very fun because I mean I don't know if you saw it, Zach, but like the LA Thieves versus Optic, like Optic were like 48-0 or
Yep,
something,
I saw that. Yeah,
something crazy like that. But you come to the official, LA Thieves always win. Um, you're like, honestly, you're probably there going, how, why, what the fuck?
yeah, yep,
You're sitting down with your management group, like, yeah, we've been smoking these guys, like, we're gonna look good here. Um, everything kind of changes when you get in that main stage and the lights, camera, action. Um, but I'm excited to kind of once again learn from those mistakes. Um, I wouldn't even say them mistakes. It's like just in hindsight, it's like it didn't work out. Like what did we not consider as much? What
mm,
has more value? What has more priority? And really just go off from there. Um, but one of the decisions was happy about was, despite it being so last minute and whatnot, like bringing in Eric, giving him some invaluable experience, just be there at champs. I think that kind of we saw him at Toronto because we were knocked out pretty early, but the academy team was going strong, and the eye test definitely flew with flying colors. Um, and to bring him into the mold and see how he could like overcome adversity and really adapt to the team, and it was kind of different environment. It was the big leagues. Um, he's from Monterrey in Mexico, probably sitting at his setup and whatnot. That's probably got probably a crooked chair or whatnot, and he comes into the Boston facility, and it's all pretty premium quality stuff here. So um, I really am excited to build off Eric as the kind of the prospect for the future, um, and just once again our learnings as a coaching management, all the way through as a whole organization. Um, I guess the next point, next season, big season for us. We've been here for 2 years. There are a lot of top teams changing at the moment, which is funny because last year in WrestleMania there was only one change in the top
which
four
is
teams,
Alec.
which was Alec from FaZe, and that was kind of like whoa.
Yeah, Alec Thief
Um,
stuck. I mean, like they changed, but would you consider them a top 4 team
I
in
had
Vanguard?
Surge, I had Optic, I had FaZe, and I had LA Thieves because obviously
Yeah,
they won. Those were the top
yeah.
four.
Like Toronto was on the bubble. They had Scrappy. Everyone knew Scrappy was going to be good, so I don't even really consider that.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely a weird spot. I mean, being 2 years in, um, it's hard to, every other team has had 2 years on you to build. Um, you know, I think some benefits that they have over us is, they found their pieces of the puzzle that are like, the appetite for other players to come and join them. Um, for us, we're still looking for that. Going into this off season, to be a bit transparent, a lot of people were high on Eric. So that gives us a bit of leverage there. But to be a championship winning team, you need one or two pieces to be able to pull that all together. And that's the struggle, right? Is them pieces are already on the top 4 teams. So why would they come away from that unless you have that appetite, which is what we're trying to build off at the moment. Definitely difficult, can be disheartening at times because I know how good Boston is. I know how good they like. they'll treat players. So it's just about having the opportunity to do that, which we're very close to doing. That's a story for another day. Yeah, we'll get there. It's a long road, and it doesn't happen overnight. It can take 2 or 3 seasons to even get close to it. So I'd like to hope, like going into next year, maybe we have more than one piece, and people will want to come and join us and play for Boston. So
Yeah, no, WrestleMania is always a weird time. Some players don't want to play with other players, and trying to manage that kind of relationship and how you go about things is always interesting. I, I, I I guess as a kind of template, what do we really want to accomplish as a team next season? Obviously the answer to anything is let's win as much as possible. But with the last kind of 2 seasons in mind and learning from that, what do we really want to accomplish? At least for me, it's really kind of accomplishing that culture. I know there's some sports, whether you call it football or soccer, um, and I follow AFL, and there's this team in Sydney where it's like you go to this team if you want to win, and they've got a very strict regime. It's not like a lifestyle team. It's very much go there, you win. And there's another team where it's just like you go there and you party hard. Like you play hard, you party hard. And then another team, once again, like there's all kind of different identities built throughout the kind of the ecosystem of like a sports team. I think that is very similar to kind of how COD operates. There's a couple teams where you like stray away from. There's a couple teams where you're like, okay, these guys are like they're just all about COD. Some people like that, and some people don't. Some people want it to be like, okay, I want it to be more of a vibey atmosphere. I want to be able to like hang out with the guys outside of the game. Um, and so there's a lot of like different components and elements that you kind of need to juggle. And at least for us, that's kind of what I believe Boston to come to is like we like to play hard, we like to party hard. We want a good balance of both of them, right? We want to reward as much as possible. We want to make these guys the superstars. Obviously, winning's a big thing, but I think something that we both learned this year is like, hey, just being in the game and grinding 10 hours a day just on the game only for 6 days a week isn't going to push you above everybody else because you did an hour a day extra or you did an extra day. There are so many different things that we can do outside of the game to kind of support these players. Whether that just be, hey, have a day off, relax, go get a massage, go out into the city, enjoy yourself, have some time to think about, a little bit of self-reflection. Like these are kind of things that I'd like to see and like kind of accomplish next season. Um, it's kind of that more of a balance, and I think that will help, mentally, obviously physically. Giving them time to be able to feel good, look good. 'Cause if you feel good, look good, you play good. But yeah, I think that kind of also starts with the organization. And over the last couple of years, Zach, you and myself have kind of teetered with the idea of having a performance coach, and we've been so early on. We're doing the building blocks, which we kind of did pilot test on leading up to champs. How was that kind of experience with a kind of sports psychologist, and is that a plan that we have for next season?
yeah, no, obviously we only spent 2 weeks. Spent 2 weeks with our sports psychologist. I think it helped, honestly, a tremendous amount in the 2 weeks that we had him. Um, it was always an idea that we had, but really seeing it come to fruition with like New York, I think, is it Matt? Is that his name?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
he's great. Like I see him at every event. He's supporting the team. He's doing what he needs to do, and it looks like it really helps. And again, we had the idea, but me seeing it in action, I was like, okay, we need this. We're at a disadvantage to these teams if we don't have it. And it's just nice for a player to have someone that they can go and speak to that's not involved. I always like to say that I'm very approachable, I'm very open, but sometimes you might not want to tell your coach that you're tired or you're having problems with this player because you might think it might negatively impact you. And if you come to, they might think going to a coach and saying I don't like X player, that they lose their job, and like the organization picks X player over them, which will never happen, by the way. But it's just nice to have someone that they can go and talk to about all their problems and all their worries, and have someone that's trained for it. Because again, as much as I like to say I'm approachable, I'm not a trained sports psychologist. I don't know how to make someone not feel nervous on a stage or you know feel more confident in themselves. Like honestly, I need a sports psychologist myself. So I know these players do. And I'd love to even push that further and get a nutritionist and make sure these guys are eating healthy, and maybe you know a physical person that can get these guys in the gym like a couple days a week and really set that healthy living standard. Because when I look back at my career, I do wish that I took them things more seriously, and didn't sit in a house with 7 other guys and eat Chick-fil-A and a
Wasn't me. Wasn't
chicken
me.
tikka masala, a Sonic Blast, and yeah, I mean, living healthy brain makes you think better, just makes you overall enjoy life more. And I've recently started working out myself, and I don't know if you guys can tell, um, and I just feel happier. I feel I've got more energy. I feel like I want to honestly feel like I want to run through a wall, and that's even without Doug here. That guy makes me want to go through any wall, but um,
In a good way.
yeah, in a good way.
Climbing Mount
Yeah,
Everest.
yeah.
Yeah, inspirational.
And like that's just some things I want to that we can do for the players that come to Boston. You know, their job is to play. Their job is to solely focus on playing. Like I want to help take care of everything outside the game for them, so they don't have to worry. You know, they're healthy. Their overall health as a person is really good. And yeah, that's where I want to be one day with the organization. I believe we're all aligned on where we want to be. Obviously, as Den said, these things take time, and you need to gradually get there. But when we do get there, it's going to be hopefully something that attracts, you know, the superstar talent that I want people to leave Boston saying like, "Wow, that franchise is great." They treated me right, uh, and we set the standard of what every franchise should be. Because I've been in some franchises that didn't treat players well, and that is something that isn't fair to the players and shouldn't happen. Um, so that is my one goal as a coach, is to push for them things, so we can say that we're a good franchise that people want to play at.
Yeah, no, I once again, I completely agree with the sports psychologist. I know when we sat on some of those kind of workshops with him as well because we had a small time frame, and even in those 2 weeks, I was like, I wish I had a sports psychologist when I was playing because wow,
Yeah,
it's so eye opening. And maybe it's because I'm a little bit more mature now and the experience and kind of moved on from playing, but um, yeah, to really get the guys in the right mental state, get them in the right kind of focus, kind of allows them to kind of block out the noise. Um, just the way you then treat your teammates and the approach you do is very professional. It's confident, but it's humble. Just some really basics of like fundamentals of really just life and which applies to the game. I mean, uh, one that sticks with me is common sense ain't so common, and so like, I bring this up because in an in-game scenario there was
me and
we
Ben.
sh- yeah we should we got some kills on control and Ben's on the point or something like that. Beans for those who don't know. And he thought it was common sense to sack the point, and one of our other players ran off. And so we're like, hey, like, if you think it's common sense to stack the point, let's communicate and make sure that everyone's on the same page. And you may as well just say it, because if you're stacking the point, there's a reason you want to stack the point. Maybe it's 4 dead, 3 dead. Maybe you just know more than the other person. And we're a little back and forth.
Yeah, I was definitely honestly they they like to call me petty sometimes, but that was definitely one of my petty moments. Because I did bring up a past example of Ben not using common sense. Looking back, do laugh, but again, something I could probably be better at is not being petty. But you know, uh, yeah, common sense isn't so common.
Yeah, the sports psychologist was like, these simple mistakes that happen, sometimes common sense ain't so common, and we all just were like, oh, no way. um, but yeah, like he really like coming out from like a third party and like not being in those four walls every day. I mean, I know myself, I sometimes will have friction with Zach, or I'll have friction with some of the players, the way they're like have an attitude, and the players probably have um just a little bit of resentment, just normal workplace performance industry things. So it's good with someone that's completely not affiliated, but like they're not in those four walls every single day. So it can really give people a good grasp of like, okay, like maybe we should go on this way. Like, have you thought about like teaching your mind in this kind of spectrum? But glad to know that we will have a sports psychologist for next season. And I think that's going to be something that really, once again, separates ourselves from the rest of the franchises that don't. We could see the value brought in only a small 2 week frame period. So getting them in preseason, doing the individuals, getting the person to kind of understand these players, know them on a more personal level. I think will pay off tenfold. And like you mentioned with the nutritionist and the kind of how we go about dieting, that's something we're also going to be implementing for next season, which I'm really happy. We have our own kitchen in our facility, um, but we are going to be having actually curated player meals. So, they don't have to worry about ordering Jersey Mike's for the 20th time,
Yeah,
going up to get enchiladas for the 50th time, or as Eric once found out, having Five Guys before practice.
against FaZe and LA Thieves isn't a great idea.
It's
Yeah.
the best idea because it definitely makes you feel a bit sluggish. A little bit of mayo kind of concept right there. So, um, spearheading them to going into next season as well. Once again, like you said, Zach, they don't have to worry about these outside things. It's like cool. Like if I want to essentially like a Chipotle bowl, I can go down to the kitchen, order, bang, done. If I'm having a hard time in scrims, or it could be just anything in life, whether it be family issues, girlfriend issues, um, whether they have a problem with a player, whether they're lacking focus within the gameplay, whether they want to see more from an organization, and where we can't provide that. They have a sports psychologist to kind of lean on. And we think with these resources and these tools, it will uh, definitely help us in the player turnover aspect. I think if we were able to provide this for our players this season, there wouldn't be so much change, and I think we would get a vastly different translation from our practice to our official games. And I think once again that makes the players look better. It makes the organization look better. You're winning. Everyone kind of wins, and that's kind of the goal. And like into next season is a win-win-win-win across the board. Um, but we understand that these resources and these tools are needed for these players because physical health, mental health is so important these days. Um, even the change of schedule that we're kind of thinking about in terms of not having them do 6 days.
Yeah, I'll talk more on that because that's an idea. Obviously, the schedule is talked about between all the coaches. Um, I talk to every single player. I talk to a lot of players at events, and 6 days a week, it's a lot. When you're doing the same thing, the same four walls with the same people, it's a lot. I know people say dream job, blah blah blah, but you know, I think anything in life, if you're doing the same thing 6 days a week, 8 hours a day, it's gonna get tiring, right?
And
The
I just want
demand,
to say
like,
the demand for like being at peak performance all the time. Like there are some
yeah,
people where it's just like, yeah, you got a normal work week. I've done it before and whatnot, but the demand is not, in my opinion. Maybe I wasn't working hard enough at my family business, but it wasn't as hard as how mentally draining and
yeah.
straining
These
that these days are.
these guys need to be locked in the entire day. Because if you lock out, if you're not locked in, it's a waste of time. You're not learning anything. You might make a mistake because you haven't told your teammate what you're going to do. So like you need to be on top of everything. So like the mistakes you do make and the things you can talk about as a team are going to be beneficial, and you're moving forward instead of just plateauing like on a straight line. Um, so what I would like to do is reduce that to 5 days a week and have an extra day where the team can like spend time with each other outside the game. Whether you go into Boston, whether you go see a movie, whether you can do so many different things. So you're quote still working because you're just working on something else. You're not working on your in-game
Yeah,
skill.
purely gameplay. Yeah,
You're working on your relationship building with your teammates outside the game, um, which I think is really important. And you know, when you are working 6 days a week, when you do have that one day off, some people might not want to do anything because you just want to like relax and rest because you got another 6 days coming up. Um, so whether that will actually come to fruition, I would love for that to be a conversation with the other coaches. And there's a lot of benefits to it, and I'd like other people to see all the benefits. Um, and I think it will just create a healthier ecosystem for everybody. You won't see so many players getting drained or worn out so quickly. Um, and
I
yeah,
mean,
all for the. Yeah, go
I
on.
look at Zin and I look at possibly Octane in those conversations where Zin, when he retired, he said, "Look, the hours are like they're grueling hours," and Octane's just retired, and I would say that that's part of the hours are just once again like you don't have a time for a social life. Like you want to go out, well, you're scrimming to 8 p.m. So
And let's just remind everybody as well is like the turnover between events. Like we'll finish an event on Sunday, and by Wednesday we're prepping for the next event. So like you really have no time off. You might have
Monday's
one or
travel day.
yeah, Monday's travel
Tuesday's
day.
just
So
relax.
yeah. So like you might have 1 or 2 weeks off during the season where it's like everyone goes back home, chills for a week or two. But like in the grand scheme of things, that's not really enough time. Like it's a draining season. I want to give my players more, not going to say freedom because I'd still like team activities to be done on the days that we have off, but just time away from the game, away from the screens, getting some air. I don't know, just breathing, just doing
Yeah,
something.
I think that helps with like kind of conflict as well. Like when personalities are clashing a little bit, they get them away, get them in a different environment.
Yeah, because they don't
Helps.
know each other. These guys don't like. If all you know is the guy you're talking to in the four walls when you're playing at the highest level of Call of Duty, you might start resenting him, but you don't know him. You don't know him
Yeah,
outside the game. You don't know his character, like his emotions, his feelings, and like it's hard to it's hard to build a bond and trust in the game when you don't have it out the game. That's something I stand by and I'll live by. That you know, being closer to someone out the game will translate in game and will make things a lot better and a lot easier. So
so hey, here's hoping maybe there's a schedule change. Maybe there won't be so much burnout. Um, and hopefully there's a little bit more of a longevity with kind of these players as well. I mean, I know they've got like some what are hand exercises? There's like the table, there's the air claw.
yeah, I mean, I didn't do mine. I'm pretty sure I got arthritis in both wrists. So yeah, do hand exercises. It'll definitely benefit you. Um, yeah, I'm just a mess. So
Yeah, and then we'll start wrapping this up soon. I guess lastly, like what do we aim to deliver for fans this year off the stage and on the stage? I know a little bit for myself is I kind of want to make sure that we're player focused. We have the wellness, the physical training, uh, the culture is going to be a really big thing this season, and we've already put action that we've learned from this season going into next. And once again, we wish we could have done it sooner and whatnot, but we are getting there, and we're really hoping that the fans can see our progress. And I think even in this off season, we're not settling. We want to keep striving to be better and better. And overall, we kind of just want to we want to do things the breach way. And that may be definitely differ from how some other teams do things, but we really want to be, in terms of that professional, humble, or confident kind of approach. Um, you know, humble in victory, gracious in defeat, kind of outlook. And as always, want to excite the fans, give them something to cheer for, in terms of having young talent like Eric on board next season to kind of really spearhead our kind of path ahead and our vision. And, at the same time, we also expect our fans to kind of hold us accountable of these goals. And we want, like you mentioned earlier, Zach, we want our players to go, holy shit, I want to stay at Boston for the long term. We want to support these players so they have a good memory of Boston. They want to stay. We want them to stay. And there's a good relationship built throughout the tenure of the organization and the league itself. So yeah, how about yourself?
For me, it's setting the expectation, right? We want to win. Everybody wants to win. Winning is incredibly difficult, and winning consistently is even harder. Hats off to New York; they were able to do it. What no one can promise a win. That's the bottom line. You cannot. No one can make a promise that they're going to win the next tournament. But things we can promise is fan involvement. A team, as you said, a team that the fans want to get behind. Being humble, being gracious. Even something as simple as I know you mentioned before, but like if you lose, you stand up and you accept it, right? You say GG's to the team. You're not in your chair. You're all like slumped over, right? Let's be gracious. Like losing is learning at the end of the day. Let's accept it. Let's take it on the chin and let's move forward. And if we set all these things, if we do these watch parties, if we host future events and the fan activity and getting to know these players and in the involvement, when the win does come, it's going to feel even better. And that's kind of where I sit is, we're working every day to win. We are, no one's sitting there trying to lose. But it's about involving the supporters, the fans, and giving them something to get behind. I look at my dad with he's a big football supporter, supports Brighton through and through, and he's a diehard 45-year supporter. And I just look at what traditional sports have done to really include them people and how they get these people to it's generational. It's like I support Brighton because my dad does. I'm from there. Like I really get behind the team. And that's the end goal, right? Is you want to create generational support and no matter who's playing for Boston Breach, you want as important it is to have fans of players, you want fans of Boston as well. And that's the goal. That's the goal going forward, to try and win and do it with the fans along the way. So
Yeah, really, really inputting these processes and kind of these tools and these resources towards these players, and everyone can see the players can see the treatment, the fans can see the treatment, the results will come. It's the process is greater than the result, and that's really what I think this year we kind of found ourselves at a fault where we were chasing our tail trying to win. The next season is one of the ones where it's like, hey, let's focus more on the process.
The win will come.
The win will come,
and we know. Just to cut you off quickly, we know the process works. I think anyone smart enough will see that both years in Boston Breach, in year one we had the last 4 picks of the league, and we made it work. The process and the system we've built not to gloat or anything or boost my ego, but we know it works. The system works. We just need to give it time. We need to find the right players to implement in the system
And trust.
and trust, and it will come. I believe the system will work, and when it does, we'll be celebrating in Boston. I'm sure with all the fans. So.
Oh yeah, we love winning, and we'll go out with
Yeah.
a bang.
Yep.
That's for sure. So that kind of wraps up the episode of Locker Room episode 1. We hope everyone's enjoyed it. Want to try and give everyone a bit more of a casual kind of feel to it, and open up. Yeah, any feedback and whatnot, or any topics in future to discuss. I'm sure there's going to be players on it next, and myself and Zach will probably be here over the season kind of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I hope you guys enjoyed.
Sorry. Something I want to give access to is like why we do things, why we make changes.
Transparency.
And it's all good. Anyone can talk about changes and stuff like that after the season, but we want to give you guys an insight during the season. If we make a change last week, I want to tell you why. Without bashing the player and without discrediting a player's ability so he doesn't find it hard to find a job somewhere else. I want to give you guys an insight on how things are looking and how things are going. And yeah, you guys can hold us accountable, and hopefully that builds more trust, and we can really just keep pushing the level of how a franchise and organization should act and operate. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, I'm good. You're good to close it. Sorry.
Oh no! Thank you everyone that watched. Once again, the Locker Room.